He walked into a five-star restaurant covered in mud and dirt. The manager took one look at him and told the chef to serve him meat from the garbage. Spoiled, contaminated, dangerous. One waitress saw it happen. She grabbed a napkin and wrote 3 words that changed everything. Because the man sitting in that booth, he owned the entire restaurant, and he saw everything. The rain in Los Angeles doesn't fall. It attacks. It came down sideways that Tuesday night in November, hammering the gutters, turning Vine Street into a shallow river of reflected neon and trash. The kind of rain that makes you feel like the city itself is trying to wash something away. Elena Martinez was 34 years old, and she felt 50. She adjusted her apron under the fluorescent lights of Harrington's Steakhouse, wincing as the knot pressed into the bruise on her lower back. Same spot, every shift. Her feet throbbed inside worn orthopedic shoes she'd bought secondhand from a nurse at County General. Her body was here, moving through the motions of a Tuesday night, but her mind was 8 miles east, in a hospital room where her daughter Lily, 8 years old, gap-toothed, obsessed with butterflies and convinced she'd become a marine biologist someday, was hooked up to monitors and waiting for a heart surgery that cost $75,000. Insurance covered some of it. Nowhere near enough. Elena had done the math so many times the numbers had burned themselves into her brain like a scar. Even working doubles, even skipping meals, even selling her car and taking the bus. The gap between what she had and what Lily needed was a canyon she couldn't see across. Harrington's used to mean something. 40 years of history on this corner. A place where movie executives and talent agents shook hands over dry-aged ribeyes and bottles of wine that cost more than Elena's rent. The restaurant had character once, warmth, pride, the smell of good food made by people who cared. But lately the velvet booths were peeling at the seams. The brass railings had gone dull. The spirit of the place was dying a slow, quiet death, and everyone who worked here could feel it. Elena, table 7 needs a refill. Stop daydreaming or I'll dock your tips again. Derek Simmons. That voice could curdle milk. He'd taken over as general manager 8 months ago, after some anonymous investor bought the restaurant through a holding company nobody could trace. The staff never learned who actually owned Harrington's now. All they learned was that Derek treated them like things to be used and discarded. He docked tips for minor infractions. He scheduled people for shifts, then cut them early so he didn't have to pay full hours. He smiled at customers and snarled at everyone else the moment the kitchen doors swung shut. "I'm on it, Derek." Elena kept her voice flat, neutral. She couldn't afford to feel anything right now. Not anger, not exhaustion, not the dull ache of humiliation. She grabbed the water pitcher and forced a smile onto her face as she moved through the dining room. Nearly empty tonight. The rain had kept people home. A couple of tourists sat near the window arguing over a map. A regular named Mr. Henderson was nursing his usual scotch at the bar, watching the rain streak down the glass with the patience of a man who'd run out of places to be. A slow, dead night, the kind where minutes feel like hours and hours feel like penance. Then the heavy oak door groaned open. A gust of wind tore through the entrance, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and exhaust fumes. The man who stepped inside looked like he'd been fighting the weather for hours and the weather had won. Tall, but hunched at the shoulders, as if bracing for something. He wore a heavy canvas jacket, frayed at the cuffs and dark with rain. His jeans were splattered with mud. His boots, work boots, thick-soled and scuffed, left wet prints on the polished hardwood. A dark beanie sat low on his forehead, and a thick, unkempt beard covered most of his face. He looked like someone who had spent the day doing something hard, outdoors, in conditions that didn't care about appearance. He stood on the welcome mat, dripping, and surveyed the room. His eyes didn't match the rest of him. They were sharp, focused, deep brown and alert, the kind of eyes that take in everything and give back nothing. Elena paused near the service station. She saw Megan, the college girl hostess, shrink behind her podium. Megan glanced toward the back hallway, hoping Derek wouldn't notice. But Derek had a radar for anyone he could look down on. He materialized from the kitchen corridor in 3 seconds flat, polished shoes clicking on the hardwood like a countdown. Hey, hey you. No greeting. No welcome. He planted himself in front of the stranger and crossed his arms. We're not a shelter, buddy. The mission's about 6 blocks east. Turn around. The man didn't flinch, didn't step back. He just looked at Derek the way you'd look at a barking dog behind a fence, noting it, not fearing it. I'm not looking for a shelter. I'm looking for a meal. This is a restaurant, isn't it? This is a fine dining establishment. We have standards. We have a dress code. The man looked down at his muddy boots, then back at Derek. Something close to amusement flickered across his face. I have money. American currency. Last I checked, the dress code applies to the service, not the cash paying for it. The dining room went silent. Henderson lowered his scotch. The tourist stopped mid-sentence. Everyone was watching. Derek's neck flushed red, the color creeping up toward his ears. Look, pal, I don't want trouble. I just want you to leave before you scare off my paying customers. I am a paying customer. And without waiting for permission, the man stepped around Derek and walked into the dining room. Not wandering, not hesitant. He moved with quiet purpose, heading toward a small booth near the back, close to the kitchen doors, the kind of table you give people you want to forget about. He sat down. The wet canvas of his jacket squeaked against the leather. He picked up the menu. Derek looked like a man swallowing a live coal. He spun on Elena. Get over here. Now. He grabbed her arm hard enough to leave fingerprints and pulled her close, dropping his voice to a hiss. Tell him we're closed. Kitchen's shut down. Whatever you have to say. Just get him out of my restaurant. Derek, he has money. By law, we can't refuse. I don't care about the law. His grip tightened. I know about your daughter, Elena. I know about those hospital bills. You need this job. So do what I tell you. He'd overheard a phone call she'd made in the break room weeks ago, crying quietly into her phone while the oncology billing department explained payment plans she still couldn't afford. Derek had been holding that information over her like a blade ever since. Elena pulled her arm free. I'll handle it. She walked to the booth. Up close, the man looked even more worn. Dark circles carved deep under his eyes. Rough, calloused hands resting on the table. Hands that had been doing physical work, not the soft hands of someone who'd given up. She noticed something else. Beneath the frayed sleeve of his jacket, a watch. Simple, almost vintage-looking, but quality. The kind of piece that costs real money and doesn't need to prove it. And his eyes, now that she could see them clearly. Tired, yes, but kind. The kind that doesn't ask for anything. I'm sorry about the manager, she said quietly, setting a menu in front of him. He's having a difficult night. One corner of his mouth twitched beneath the beard. Seems like a charming fellow. Dry. Almost warm. I'm Keanu. The name snagged something in her memory. She let it pass. Lots of people were named Keanu. Elena. Can I get you something warm? Coffee? Coffee would be wonderful. Black. He opened the menu, scanned it with the ease of someone who knew what he wanted. His finger landed on the top of the right page. The expensive side. The ribeye. 20-ounce dry-aged. Medium rare. Truffle mashed potatoes. Grilled asparagus. $120. For the steak alone. Elena leaned in, lowering her voice. Sir, I have to be honest. If you order this and can't pay, my manager will call the police. He's looking for any excuse. She paused, then added, I can get you a burger. On my tab. Really, it's no problem. He studied her face. Something shifted behind those brown eyes. Surprise. And something deeper, the look of a man being offered something he didn't expect. That's very kind of you, Elena. Truly. He reached into an inner pocket of his jacket and pulled out a small money clip. 2 bills, $100 and $50. He placed them flat on the table. Will this cover it? She stared at the cash. Crisp, dry, protected by the inner pocket. Real. Yes, this will cover it. Then I'll have the ribeye. He met her eyes. And Elena, thank you for offering the burger. That meant more than you know. Derek snatched the cash from her hand before she could reach the register and stuffed it into his own pocket. Fine. Ring it in. But tell the kitchen to take their sweet time. He stalked toward the kitchen hallway, pulling out his phone. Elena watched his face tighten, not just anger, something else. Fear. He answered the call in the corridor where nobody could hear. She didn't have time to wonder why. Tony Russo had been cooking for 30 years. Stocky, late 40s, thick mustache, forearms roped with the evidence of 10,000 shifts. 2 kids at home, 8 and 10. A mortgage that never seemed to get smaller. A wife pulling doubles at a nursing home across town. Tony believed food was sacred. Every plate that left his kitchen was a handshake, a promise. The swing doors crashed open. Derek slapped the ticket on the stainless steel counter. Ribeye, 20 ounces. Medium rare. For the homeless guy out there. Tony frowned. He'd heard the commotion. Kitchens have ears. If he paid, I'll cook it. He reached for his tongs. Money's money. Hold it. That tone. Tony knew that tone. Derek's eyes drifted to the waste area by the dishwasher station. A ribeye sat on a tray next to the garbage bin. Sent back by a customer hours ago. Overcooked and rejected. It had been sitting at room temperature for over 3 hours. The edges were graying. If you leaned close, a faint sour smell was starting to creep in. Derek pointed at it. Use that one. Tony stared at him. Boss, that's garbage. 3 hours at room temp. The bacteria alone, I'm talking food poisoning. Hospitalization. For someone with a weak immune system, that could be fatal. Look at him. Derek jerked his thumb toward the dining room. His stomach's probably lined with steel. I'm not wasting a $120 cut on some vagrant who probably stole that cash. No. I won't do this. Derek stepped closer. His smile vanished. You've got 2 kids, Tony. Little ones. 8 and 10. And your wife works at that nursing home on Wilshire. His voice dropped to a whisper. Good jobs are hard to come by, especially at your age. 1 phone call from me, and you never work in another kitchen in Los Angeles. Tony's hands started trembling. Are you threatening me? 15 minutes. Or your family feels every consequence. Derek pushed through the doors and was gone. Tony stood alone in the hum and heat of the kitchen, staring at the gray slab of meat. 30 years behind a grill. He'd never been asked to do anything like this. He thought about his kids asleep in their beds. God forgive me, he whispered. He reached for the steak. Elena didn't have a reason to go back to the kitchen. Her tables were covered. But something pulled her. Gut instinct, the kind you learn to trust after years of reading rooms and faces for a living. She pushed through the swing doors just enough to see inside. Tony stood at the grill, his back to her. The piece of meat in his hand was gray, discolored. She heard him, barely audible over the ventilation. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He laid the steak on the grill. The sizzle was sharp, immediate. But underneath it, something else. A faint sourness that had no business being in a kitchen. Elena knew that smell. Every server who's worked long enough knows what turning meat smells like. Her elbow caught a shelf. Pot lid crashed to the floor. Tony spun around. His face broke when he saw her. Elena. I can explain. The doors swung open behind her. Derek. He must have heard the crash. He looked at Elena. At Tony. Back at Elena. His eyes narrowed. What are you doing in my kitchen? Checking on the order. The customer was asking how much longer. Derek studied her face, searching for a crack. And what did you hear? Nothing. I knocked over a pot lid. That's all. He stepped close. Close enough for her to smell his cologne and the sweat underneath it. There are things that happen in kitchens that servers don't need to know about, Elena. Things that could have very serious consequences if spoken about. He glanced at Tony, then back at her. Your daughter, Lily, County General, $75,000. That's a lot of money for a woman working alone. Her eyes burned. She did not let a single tear fall. I didn't hear anything. Good. He smiled, and it was the coldest thing in the room. Then you're going to take that plate out when it's ready. You're going to smile. Full Harrington's experience. And then you're going to forget this conversation happened. He patted her shoulder, a gesture that felt like a hand around her throat, and walked out. Silence. Just the sizzle of meat and the hum of the refrigerators. Tony, Elena said, you can't do this. He wouldn't look at her. I have 2 kids. If I lose this job, just finish cooking it, she said quietly. I'll take care of the rest. He didn't understand. He didn't need to. Elena walked out of the kitchen. Her hands were trembling. Her mind was screaming in 6 directions at once. But underneath all the noise, one thing was clear. She was not going to let that man eat poison. She stood at the service station gripping the counter until her knuckles went white. Derek had cameras, video and audio, installed 6 months ago. Security, he said, but everyone knew the real reason. He watched the staff, monitored conversations. If she walked up to that table and said a word out loud, Derek would see it. She'd be fired by midnight. Lily's surgery would die on the vine. But if she did nothing, if she carried that plate out and smiled and walked away, that man would eat contaminated meat. He could end up in a hospital. He could end up in a morgue. Elena picked up a clean white napkin from the stack beside the water glasses. She pulled the blue ballpoint pen from her apron pocket, the same pen she'd used 1,000 times without thinking. This time, every word mattered. Do not eat the steak. The manager made the chef use spoiled meat because of how you look. It will make you very sick. Please trust me. She paused. He needed a way out, something that would protect them both. Pretend to eat. Cut the meat, but do not put it in your mouth. I am so sorry. She folded the napkin tight and slipped it into her palm. Order up. Tony's voice came through the window. Flat. Hollow. The steak sat on the plate, seared dark and glistening under heat lamps. Garlic butter pooling around the edges. Chimichurri scattered like confetti. It looked like something from a magazine. Beautiful. Perfect. Elena knew what was underneath. She picked up the plate. Derek was watching from the bar, arms crossed. She could feel his eyes on her back like a hand between her shoulder blades. Every step across that dining room was a lifetime. The distance between the kitchen and booth 6 had never been so long. She reached the table. Keanu put down the newspaper he'd been reading and looked at the steak. His eyes widened. That looks incredible. My compliments to the chef. The words landed like a blow. Elena forced herself to smile. She set the plate down carefully. As she adjusted the silverware, she leaned in, angling her body to block Derek's sight line from the bar. Her hand slid beneath the table. She pressed the folded napkin into Keanu's rough palm and squeezed once. Hard. He froze. He looked up at her, startled. She couldn't speak. Not a single word. But her eyes held his, and everything she couldn't say was in them. Read it. Please. Trust me. Enjoy your meal, sir. She turned and walked away without looking back. She reached the service station, grabbed a glass, and pretended to polish it, angling herself so she could see booth 6 in the mirror behind the bar. Keanu sat very still. Steam rose from the plate. Slowly, beneath the table, he unfolded the napkin. Elena watched his reflection as his eyes moved across her words. The transformation was instant. The tired, slumped man vanished. His spine straightened. His jaw tightened. Those kind brown eyes went cold. Hard. The eyes of someone used to making decisions under pressure. He looked at the steak, at the kitchen, then directly at Elena's reflection in the mirror. One nod, almost invisible. Elena exhaled so hard her ribs ached. He picked up his knife and fork. Her stomach dropped. He sliced into the meat, the grayish interior visible beneath the char, speared a piece, lifted it toward his mouth. She gripped the glass so hard she thought it would shatter. The fork stopped, hovered, then slowly, deliberately lowered back to the plate. He picked up his coffee instead and took a long sip. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Not any phone. Brand new. Sleek. The kind that costs more than Elena made in a month. Completely wrong for a man who appeared to be sleeping under a bridge. Derek noticed, started walking toward the booth. Keanu was already dialing. Marcus, I'm at Harrington's, the one on Vine. Get here now. Bring the lawyer. And call the health department. He set the phone on the table beside the untouched steak. Derek arrived, face contorted. Who the hell are you? Who were you talking to? Keanu ignored him. He pulled off the beanie, ran a hand through thick dark hair streaked with gray, used a napkin to wipe the grime from his face. The dirt was real, the kind that accumulates after 14 hours shooting action scenes on an outdoor film set. But beneath it, the face was unmistakable. Derek went white. His mouth opened and closed with no sound. You're. Keanu Reeves stood up from the booth. Full height, no longer hunching, no longer pretending. Yes, he said quietly. And I'm also the person who bought this restaurant 18 months ago. The anonymous investor your company reports to. That's me. Silence so thick you could choke on it. My mother worked here, Keanu continued, his voice steady. 35 years ago. She was a waitress. Just like Elena. We had nothing. This place meant something to us. So I bought it to protect it. He paused. Tonight I came to see how my investment was being managed. How the staff treats people when they think nobody important is watching. Derek was trembling, sweat rolling down his temples. Mr. Reeves, sir. This is all the chef Tony, he's the one who… That's a lie. Tony was standing in the kitchen doorway. His chef's whites were stained, his face pale, but his voice was clear. Derek ordered me to use the spoiled meat. He threatened my family. He said I'd never work again. Tony looked at Elena. She had nothing to do with it. She tried to stop it. She warned you. She risked everything. Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out the crumpled napkin, unfolded it, smoothed it flat, held it up so every person in the room could see the blue ink. He read it aloud, every word. Then he lowered it and looked at Derek. This woman, minimum wage plus tips, single mother, daughter waiting for heart surgery she can't afford. Risked everything she has to warn a stranger she'd never met. She didn't know who I was. She didn't know I owned this place. She just knew someone was about to be poisoned, and she couldn't live with doing nothing. Derek dropped to his knees, hands clasped. Please, I'm sorry. I have debts, bad people. I wasn't thinking. Keanu looked down at him for a long, uncomfortable moment. You're not sorry for what you did, Derek. You're sorry it didn't work. He crouched to eye level. I'm giving you a choice. The kind you didn't give me. Option 1, you turn yourself in tomorrow. Confess to everything, including the money you've been skimming for 8 months. My accountants found it weeks ago. That's part of why I came tonight. You face the system. Maybe you come out better. He stood. Option 2, you walk out that door and disappear. But by morning, every restaurant owner in the city knows your name. You'll never work in hospitality again. And those people you owe, when they find out you've got nothing left, no job, no income, no way to pay, they'll come find you. Derek rose slowly. He looked around the room at Keanu, at Elena, at Tony, at the faces watching him. His expression cycled through shame, fury, terror, and something that might have been the first honest emotion he'd felt all night. He walked out without a word. The door closed behind him, and the rain swallowed him whole. Keanu watched the door for a beat. Have someone follow him, he told Marcus quietly, and start the paperwork. He won't turn himself in. Then he walked to Elena. Are you all right? She tried to speak, couldn't, shook her head, tears falling silently. He put a hand on her shoulder. My mother stood where you're standing. 35 years ago. We had nothing back then. But she never lost who she was. He looked around the faded dining room. I bought this place because of her. But you just reminded me why it matters. Elena found her voice. Came out raw. I didn't know who you were. I just couldn't let you get hurt. I know. That's what made it real. He handed her a business card. Simple, elegant, a name and a number. Call this tomorrow afternoon. And Elena, bring your daughter's medical records. She stared at the card. She didn't understand yet, but something in his eyes told her to trust it. 3 days later, Derek didn't turn himself in. Former employees surfaced with stories: stolen tips, verbal abuse, health violations buried under threats. The health department launched an investigation. Police opened a case. The people Derek owed money to came looking for him. Derek Simmons vanished from Los Angeles. Some said he ran south. Others said the desert. Nobody knew for sure. Nobody looked very hard. 2 weeks later, Elena stood in the back office of Harrington's, adjusting the collar of a new black blazer in front of the mirror. Tailored, fitted perfectly, made of fabric that felt like nothing she'd ever worn. The woman looking back at her seemed like someone else. Someone who belonged here. General manager. When she'd called the number on the card, Keanu had answered himself. How's Lily doing? No preamble. No small talk. Just that. She'd broken down right there in her kitchen. Morning sun pouring through the window, medical bills fanned across the table like a losing hand. He listened, didn't interrupt, didn't offer platitudes, just let her talk until the words ran out. Then, I want you to be the new general manager of Harrington's. Mr. Reeves, I can't run a restaurant. I don't have a degree. I don't know how to read. Those things can be taught. Marcus has a business tutor lined up 3 times a week. You'll learn the spreadsheets. But what you already have, what you showed me that night, that can't be taught. A pause. My mother never got the chance to be more than a waitress. Not because she wasn't capable. Because nobody opened the door. I'm opening it. Not as charity. Because you earned it. His voice softened. I've set up a fund. I'm calling it the Blue Napkin Fund. Its first grant covers Lily's surgery. The full cost. Every penny. Elena couldn't breathe. You don't need to thank me. Just promise me. When you have the power to help someone, and you see them struggling the way you've been struggling, you'll remember this moment. She promised. And she meant it in a way she'd never meant anything before. Lily's surgery happened 5 days ago. Successful. Full recovery expected. She'd been sitting up in bed yesterday, coloring a picture of a butterfly, asking when she could go home. The renovation of Harrington's was fast and thorough. New burgundy leather booths replaced the peeling velvet. The brass was polished until it gleamed. The kitchen was overhauled with new equipment and safety protocols that Tony helped design. Tony was still here, on probation. He'd accepted without a word of complaint and thrown himself into the work, arriving before dawn, inspecting every delivery personally, tasting every sauce, checking every cut. He refused to let anything leave his kitchen that wasn't right. He was trying to earn back something he'd lost that night. Elena understood that. She understood guilt, and she understood what it looks like when someone is fighting to become the person they should have been. Opening night, 7 o'clock. The doors opened. Word had traveled. The reservation book was full for months. Elena moved through the dining room like she was born for it, greeting guests, coordinating the kitchen, catching problems before they caught fire. 10 years of waitressing had taught her how a room breathes, how a kitchen pulses, when something's about to go wrong. Now she used all of it. By 9, Harrington's was full. The sound of conversation and laughter and clinking glasses filled the space the way it hadn't in years. Tony was in his element, calling orders, running his line like a conductor. The food coming out of that kitchen was the best the restaurant had ever produced. Elena paused near the service station and let herself breathe. One breath, just one. That's when she noticed him. A man in a hooded sweatshirt, standing just inside the entrance. Not approaching the hostess stand, not looking for a table, carrying a large plastic container under one arm, scanning the room with quick, agitated eyes. Elena's stomach tightened. She'd spent 10 years reading body language for tips. She knew when someone didn't belong. She moved toward him calmly. Can I help you, sir? He flinched. I'm looking for Derek. Derek Simmons. He owes me money. A lot of money. Mr. Simmons no longer works here. He left several weeks ago. His face twisted. Left? He ran. And left me holding everything. His knuckles whitened on the container. If Derek can't pay, then everything he touched suffers. He raised the container. Through the semi-transparent lid, hundreds of dark shapes. Crawling, swarming over each other. Cockroaches. If released into the dining room, health department shut down. Lawsuits. Headlines. Everything they'd rebuilt. Everything Keanu had invested. Everything Elena had worked for in the last 2 weeks. Gone in 30 seconds. His hand moved toward the lid. Elena stepped directly in front of him, blocking his path into the dining room. She caught Megan's eye and gave the smallest nod toward the back, where the security team was stationed. Sir, low and steady. I understand someone wronged you, but the people in this restaurant, the staff, the guests, the cook in the kitchen, they had nothing to do with what Derek did to you. They're innocent. Hurting them won't get your money back. It'll just create more victims. His hand paused on the lid. He was listening. Derek made his choices. He's facing consequences right now wherever he is. But you still have a choice. Right now, you can walk out that door and nobody here ever has to know you came in. Or you can do this, and you'll be in handcuffs before you reach the sidewalk. She held his eyes, did not look away. Is destroying your own life really worth it? Because of someone else's mistakes. A long, terrible silence. The restaurant hummed around them, oblivious. Then, slowly, the man lowered the container. He stared at her, confused. Maybe something like respect. You've got guts, lady, he muttered. Security appeared on either side. They walked him out quietly, container sealed. The door closed. Most of the guests hadn't noticed a thing. Elena exhaled until her lungs were empty. Her legs were shaking. That was something. She turned. Keanu was standing a few feet away in a tailored navy suit, hands in his pockets, watching her with a quiet smile. He'd slipped in through the back. I didn't know you were here, Elena said. Wanted to see how things were going without making it about me. He nodded toward the door. How'd you know what to say to him? Elena shook her head. I didn't. I just saw someone about to make a decision they couldn't take back. I thought if I could remind him he still had a choice. She trailed off. Keanu was quiet for a moment. Then he looked around the room. The full tables, the warm light, the laughter, and something in his face settled. You kept the storm outside, Elena. Again. This place is lucky to have you. He straightened his jacket. Now I believe booth 6 is available. I hear the ribeye here is exceptional these days.
Elena laughed.
A real laugh. The first one that came easy in longer than she could remember. Right this way, Mr. Reeves. She led him through the dining room to booth 6. The same booth. He settled in, and she handed him a menu he didn't need. Coffee, he said. Black. She remembered. She turned to go.
Elena.
One more thing. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small frame. Simple. Elegant. Behind the glass, a crumpled white napkin with blue ink bleeding through it. Do not eat the steak. I'm having this hung near the entrance, he said. Not because of what it says. Because of what it is. Someone chose a stranger's life over their own safety. With nothing but a pen and a napkin. He looked at her, and his eyes were bright. That's what I want this place to stand for. Elena stared at her own handwriting. Those desperate, shaking words she'd written expecting nothing in return. She never imagined they'd become this. Keanu raised his coffee cup. A small gesture. Quiet. Go run your restaurant, general manager. You've got guests.
Elena nodded.
Turned. Walked back into the dining room. Her dining room. Shoulders straight. Eyes clear. Ready for whatever came next. Outside, the Los Angeles night was calm.
No rain.
No wind. And through the windows of Harrington's Steakhouse, warm light spilled onto the sidewalk the way it had for 40 years. Near the entrance, in a simple frame on the wall, a crumpled napkin with blue ink. No plaque beneath it.
No explanation.
Just the words. Most people walked right past. But every now and then someone stopped, read the handwriting, and stood there for a moment, quiet, turning over something they couldn't quite name.